George Clooney, you know, the actor George Clooney, lives in Lake Como during the summer, married to Amal Clooney, who, by the way, doesn't really like the Biden standpoint on the Gaza stuff, etc. Anyway, he's just out with a brand new editorial in the New York Times saying, quote, "I love Joe Biden, but we need a new nominee." Okay, that's a big deal. That's a really, really big deal because he's kind of, you know, at the pinnacle of the entertainment culture. So when you lose George, you've lost a lot, especially given that he just did a big fundraiser for you the other day. I'm guessing that David Axelrod and Barack Obama maybe put him up to this one, just maybe. Let's take a look at what he had to say. I'm going to quote here from the article itself. He's talking about the debate. The debate that was just, the debate for the century. I will say this. You know what? We all knew he was in bad shape. It just took the Democrats a little while to catch up. They needed to see it right there in live time, right before their eyes. He writes, was he tired? Yes. A cold? Maybe. But our party leaders need to stop telling us that 51 million people didn't see what we just saw. We're all so terrified by the prospect of a second Trump term that we've opted to ignore every warning sign. The George Stephanopoulos interview only reinforced what we saw the week before. As Democrats, we collectively hold our breath or turn down the volume whenever we see the president, who we respect, right? Of course. Walk off Air Force One or walk back to the mic to answer an unscripted question. By the way, you know what else you guys do in the process? You start looking at us over here, streaming live on YouTube, and you want to say that Trish Regan is not showing you the right material, that somehow it's kind of a cheap fake? When actually, what did we do here on this show, on the Trish Regan Show? We showed you the entire moment there at G7 when Biden walked off because there was a parachuter he was more interested in than taking a photo op with the Prime Minister of Italy, Meloni, or when he seemingly wanted to sit down there at the Normandy thing in France and kept trying to sit and trying to sit and trying to sit. And nobody else was trying to sit because they were all listening to the speech that was going down. And then we did show you the entire clip when he finally was able to sit, right? Because it was nice that he actually had a chair. We were worried that something else was going on. Anyway, the Democrats saw this too. And they chose to try and tell you that you were seeing things. You weren't seeing things. I wasn't seeing things. They were trying to manipulate the news cycle and in doing so gaslit the world until they couldn't gaslight you anymore. George Clooney goes on in this little essay he writes, saying, would this be messy? Oh, yeah, it would be messy. Democracy, however, he writes, is messy. But would it enliven our party and wake up voters who, long before the June debate, had already checked out? It sure would, according to Clooney. The short ramp to Election Day would be a benefit for us, not a danger. It would give us the chance to showcase the future without so much opposition research and negative campaigning that comes with these ridiculously long and expensive election seasons. This can be an exciting time for democracy, as we've just seen with the 200 or so French candidates who stepped aside and put their personal ambitions, oh my goodness, on hold to save their democracy from the far right. His wife's really getting to him. Really and truly. Joe Biden is a hero, he writes. He saved democracy in 2020. We need him to do it again in 2024. You see the irony of this, everyone. You look at this. He's talking about democracy is messy. But guess what? We can save democracy by elbowing the guy who actually fairly won the primary, elbowing him aside and taking him out. And then he writes right there, it'll be great because you know what? We can't allow for the opposition research. I'm sorry. Did we not learn? The Republicans learned this with George Santos. You kind of need the opposition research. Sorry, George Clooney. That's part of the democratic process, right? The press gets in there. The opposition research gets in there and they do the lowdown to figure out what's really going on. I mean, of course, we don't do it the way you guys do it when you just make up stuff bought and paid for by the Perkins Coie law firm that went through Christopher Steele, who hired a bunch of people that, by the way, even the U.S. suspected of being Russian spies, to dig up a bunch of nonsense and write a bunch of dirt about Donald Trump. No, we don't do it that way. That's you guys. That's you guys that do that kind of stuff. So yeah, you play really dirty opposition research games. But let's just be honest with each other. In other words, you want to know who's running, right? You ought to have a little bit of time. And what's going on with these electors? I mean, the electors are suddenly going to just hand it all over? That's what they want them to do. You see, ladies and gentlemen, Nancy Pelosi is now joining the George Clooney train, so to speak.